truck and SUV demand, and are sedans making a comeback.
Rows of brand new trucks sit unsold, baking under the sun, silent proof that the market has flipped. Every day they sit, dealers bleed cash.
The trucks coming in last week, like all of a sudden the whole parking lot's full.
Buried under financing loans and interest that never stops ticking. What used to be called inventory is now debt with headlights. And the same dealers who mocked buyers for asking for deals are now begging for anyone to make an offer. The balance of power has shifted, and time is running out. How low will prices sink before dealers start defaulting? What happens to used values when new trucks are suddenly cheaper? And how long before Wall Street calls it a crisis? The bubble burst. For years, truck buyers watched prices climb from $40,000 to $60,000, then beyond, while automakers swore that this was the new normal. We were told supply chain chaos made it inevitable, that semiconductor shortages justified the climb, and that the cost of innovation demanded more from our wallets. But deep down, we all knew the truth. They had tested how much pain the average working American could take. And for a while, we gritted our teeth and paid up. Now that patience is gone. The lots are overflowing, and the bubble has finally burst. What makes this moment historic is not just the scale of the drop, but the speed. $13,000 vanished overnight from the sticker prices of brand new trucks. For an industry built on the myth of unbreakable demand, this is a humiliation. It proves buyers did not lose their love for trucks. They simply refused to keep swallowing corporate greed disguised as necessity. The people spoke by walking away, and the automakers are the ones scrambling now. But the real proof of collapse is not in the headlines or the stickers. It is in the visual shock that greets anyone who pulls into a dealership today. And that is where the story gets even better. Because when you look at those dealer lots, you realize the pressure has flipped completely. The lots are stuffed. For the first time in years, the power belongs to the buyer. Walk onto any Ford, Chevy, or Ram lot, and you will see row after row of trucks baking under the sun. Dealers once starved for inventory are now drowning in it. Overflow parking lots, once reserved for employee cars, are jammed with unsold vehicles. Trucks sit bumper to bumper, silent reminders that the market has turned against the sellers. Dealers are not masters of their own fate. Every day, a truck sits idle. It costs them money in financing charges and storage. When hundreds sit for weeks, the bills pile up like snowdrifts. The desperation shows in their ads. Weekend blowout sales, midnight madness events, trade-in bonuses that seem too good to be true, all tricks to hide the same brutal reality. They cannot move the metal without surrendering margins. The once untouchable full-size truck has become a liability. Buyers can sense the fear. Salespeople who once smirked when you asked for a discount now lean forward and whisper about thousands off, special rebates, or hidden cash. The swagger is gone, replaced by nervous energy. For truck fans who have been priced out for years, this feels like long overdue justice. And the first brand to flinch under that pressure was not Ford or Chevy, it was Ram. If you're already shaking your head at these insane prices, hit the like button so more drivers see what's really happening. And drop a comment. Tell me which brand you think cracked first and why. Ram just blinked. Ram, a brand once celebrated for bold styling and muscular engines, has now been forced to show its hand. The deals on their lots are not tiny crumbs, but full five-figure discounts, openly advertised to lure us back. A Ram 1500 Bighorn with an MSRP north of $60,000 can now be had for under $47,000 after stacked dealer cash, customer bonuses, and factory incentives. For those who qualify for loyalty or first responder offers, the number can drop closer to $43,000. This is not generosity, it is survival. Stellantis, Ram's parent company, is using discounts like life preservers, hoping to keep their sales volume afloat even as buyers hesitate. In doing so, they have broken the illusion that modern trucks cannot be discounted deeply. Once one brand blinks, the others must follow, or risk watching buyers flood to their rivals' showrooms. That is why Ram's capitulation is such a turning point. It shattered the myth that these prices were locked in stone. For the average truck lover, it is more than a deal. It is vindication. We waited, we resisted, and the cracks finally spread wide enough to bring down a giant. Yet even as discounts grow, some trucks are still clinging to arrogance, and that arrogance tells its own story. 80 grand tiny discounts, Here is where the anger sets in. Walk past the entry-level or mid-trim trucks and head to the top shelf. King Ranch for Ford, Rebel and Tungsten for Ram, luxury trims meant to impress the golf club crowd. You will still see price tags brushing $80,000, sometimes $90,000. But look closely at the discounts. Instead of 5-figure markdowns, you get a measly $5,000 or $6,000 off, a baby discount on a bloated price. It is an insult. Automakers know these models carry insane margins, so they hold the line, betting that someone with more pride than patience will cave. But it reveals something deeper. These companies are not just selling trucks, they are selling status, and they are terrified of admitting that the bubble has reached even their flagship trims. By protecting the top end, they expose the cynicism behind the entire pricing game. Regular families get discounts because they had no choice but to walk away. Wealthier buyers are still treated like targets for profit. But even this fortress cannot hold forever. When the entry and mid trims are slashed by 5 figures, the luxury towers cannot stand untouched for long. The walls are closing in on every segment of the market. And if the top of the pyramid is cracking, the rest of the industry knows a reckoning is coming fast. Ford had to crawl. For decades, the Ford F-150 has been the crown jewel of American pickups. Through booms and busts, through fuel crises and recessions, it has held on to the throne as the top-selling truck. But holding that crown in 2025 has required a level of humility Ford did not expect. Walk onto a Ford lot today, and the discounts are impossible to miss. That once proud STX or XLT trim that used to flirt with $55,000 is now being driven down into the mid-$40,000 range, with the dealer and factory cash stacked together. Buyers who once felt powerless now see proof that Ford had to crawl back to them. Even the much-hyped F-150 Lightning, the electric gamble that Ford hoped would redefine the market, is carrying markdowns. Trims that launched in the $70,000 range are quietly being offered $5,000 cheaper, sometimes more when dealer incentives are included. The days of dealers charging above sticker for Lightnings are long gone. Ford's dominance in volume is only intact because they bent before breaking. The F-150 remains king, but it wears a humbled crown. Buyers sense the vulnerability. Ford knows it cannot rely on blind loyalty anymore. It has to pay for every sale with cuts to the bottom line. And if Ford had to crawl, Ram had to throw itself flat on the floor just to stay in the fight. Ram's desperate bribe. Ram is taking a different path, one drenched in desperation. Stellantis, its parent company, is not just handing out mild incentives. It is shoving wads of cash at buyers and hoping they grab. A Bighorn trim with an MSRP of $61,000 is dropping to the mid-40s after stacking dealer cash, factory bonuses, and loyalty offers. Add in first responder or mobility assistance rebates, and some buyers can shave $13,000 off a brand new Ram. It is the kind of fire sale that thrills buyers in the moment, but hints at chaos underneath. The Ram play is clear. Bribe the customer now, keep the sales charts alive, and deal with the consequences later. But there is a hidden cost. Buyers are being trained to never accept Ram's sticker price. Why would anyone pay full freight again when patience is rewarded with 5-figure discounts? What feels like generosity is actually the erosion of long-term value. The Hurricane engine is the one bright spot, a twin-turbo inline-6 with real power and efficiency. But even a strong heart cannot cover a weak strategy. Ram is writing checks its future margins may not be able to cash, and the smell of desperation clings to every offer. Ford bent, Ram bribed, but General Motors chose a different tactic, a $10,000 apology tour. Chevy's 10 grand apology? Chevy knows it overplayed its hand. For years, Silverado prices ballooned, with dealers emboldened to tack on even more when supply was tight. Buyers grumbled, but sales kept flowing. That arrogance caught up fast. Now, Silverados are being yanked back down to earth with discounts hovering near $10,000. A Z71 with a sticker over $60,000 can now land under $50,000 with the right incentives. It is less a celebration than a confession. General Motors admits it pushed too far. But there is trickery baked into the apology. Some discounts arrive through dealer markdowns, others through APR subventions that lower financing rates, but not the actual sticker. The buyer feels relief at first glance. But buried in the math, GM is still protecting its margins. At the very top end, Chevy is even bolder. The Silverado EV RST carries a sticker brushing $98,000, and the discounts are token, maybe $6,000 or $7,000 at most, sometimes tied to employee programs few can access. For regular folks, the apology fades the higher they climb the trim ladder. The message from GM is plain. We will admit mistakes, but only just enough to keep you in the showroom. Buyers sense the mockery. It feels like being tossed crumbs after years of being starved. And if even GM is bowing its head, then Toyota's stumble may be the biggest shock of all. Even Toyota folded. For years, Toyota owners lorded one truth over everyone else. Their trucks never came with discounts. Tundra buyers proudly claimed they paid sticker because Toyota did not need to deal. Tacomas sold themselves, but that swagger has cracked. On dealer lots across the country, Tundras once priced north of $70,000 are being trimmed by nearly $8,000. Even lower trims in the mid-$50,000 range are dropping into the high 40s after rebates and dealer cash. Toyota, the brand that scoffed at incentives, is now forced to play the game. The Tacoma remains mostly shielded. Discounts are tiny, maybe $2,000 here or there. Proof that Toyota still sees it as a golden goose. But the sheer volume of Tacomas sitting on lots tells a different story. Overflow rows of brand new mid-size trucks suggest Toyota's resistance is wearing thin. The brand built on reliability and scarcity is now facing the same oversupply reality as its Detroit rivals. For longtime Toyota fans, this is jarring. The aura of invincibility is gone. Even the toughest player at the poker table had to fold a hand. And for buyers who once envied Toyota's discipline, there is a sense of satisfaction in watching the giant bow. With every brand exposed, the battlefield has shifted. The next question is not who cracked, but why the entire system collapsed at once. Payments broke us. Automakers love to talk about MSRP as if that is what defines a truck's affordability. But buyers do not live in the world of stickers. They live in the world of monthly pain. What finally snapped the market was not the number on the window, but the number on the bank statement every 30 days. In 2019, an average full-size truck payment sat around $500. Today, with higher prices and interest rates climbing, many buyers stare at $800 or more for a mid-level trim, push into premium territory, and those payments creep toward $1,000. For families juggling mortgages, groceries, and rising insurance premiums, that is where the line was drawn. It is not weakness to walk away. It is math. When loan terms stretch to 7 years and payments still feel unbearable, the love of trucks cannot override the reality of budgets. The automakers assumed loyalty would trump logic, but spreadsheets do not lie. When payments cross into 4 figures, the dream of owning a new truck turns into a nightmare of endless debt. This is why buyers stopped showing up. It was not a lack of passion. It was a lack of margin in their lives. And just as payments strangled the buyer, another force piled on from the outside. Tariffs that claimed to protect us, but did the opposite. Tariffs made it worse. Politicians stood on podiums and declared tariffs a shield for American jobs. They promised these policies would strengthen the domestic auto industry. But in practice, tariffs on imported steel, aluminum, and electronic components made the cost of building trucks higher, even as dealers were slashing prices to move inventory. It created a perfect storm where every side of the equation punished the consumer. When tariffs hike input costs, automakers have 2 choices. They can absorb the pain or pass it on. Guess which path they usually choose? The extra $1,000 or $2,000 on the cost of raw materials or batteries gets baked right into the sticker. Even as incentives grow desperate on the other side, buyers walk into showrooms confused. Why are trucks supposedly on sale when the base price still feels inflated? The contradiction leaves them skeptical, and that skepticism slows sales even further. The betrayal is sharp. We are told tariffs protect us, yet we are squeezed twice. Once by inflated input costs, and again by dealers trying to make back margin through financing tricks. The net effect is distrust in the system. And while politicians and automakers shuffle blame, the people holding the heaviest burden are not lawmakers at all. They are the dealers stuck with mountains of inventory. Dealers are bleeding. Most buyers assume the pain of unsold trucks rests entirely with the automaker. But the dealer system flips that burden onto local lots. The moment a new truck arrives, the dealer pays for it through floor plan financing, a kind of loan that covers the cost until it sells. Every day that vehicle sits, interest ticks upward. Multiply that by rows of trucks gathering dust, and you see why desperation bleeds into every conversation with a salesperson. This is why discounts are suddenly massive. Dealers cannot wait for buyers to stroll in months later. They would rather lose $5,000 or even $10,000 today than bleed thousands more in interest over the next quarter. Those fireworks ads, those oversized balloons floating above the lot, they are not celebrations. They are SOS flares. For years, many dealers felt untouchable, patting on markups and laughing at buyers who begged for deals. Now they are the ones begging, because the cost of waiting is unbearable. Justice, in a strange way, has arrived. Yet while new truck discounts might feel like a blessing, there is a darker ripple effect that every buyer needs to understand, and it hits the used market first. Used values collapsing. The danger of a price crash is not confined to brand new trucks. The aftershock slams directly into the used market. Imagine buying a lightly used 2-year-old pickup for $55,000, only to discover that a brand new version of the same trim is now on sale for $47,000. Overnight, your truck's resale value plunges. Dealers know it, lenders know it, and buyers who thought they made a smart decision suddenly feel trapped. This is happening everywhere. The flood of rebates and markdowns on new inventory destroys the floor under late model values. Banks tighten lending on used vehicles because collateral looks shaky. Owners trying to trade in are blindsided by offers thousands below what they expected. Equity that once cushioned the upgrade cycle evaporates. The warning is clear. Bargains on new trucks create landmines for used buyers. Jump in too early, and you risk being underwater before the ink on the loan dries. For many, it feels less like an opportunity and more like a trap hidden inside a bargain, and that trap ripples beyond individual buyers. It shakes investors, politicians, and workers too, setting the stage for the next wave of consequences. Wall Street is sweating. For years, Wall Street analysts treated Detroit's truck lines as untouchable profit engines. Every earnings call, executives boasted about fat margins on full-size pickups, and investors nodded along as if nothing could ever threaten that golden stream of cash. But the sudden avalanche of incentives is forcing even the suits to admit reality. If every truck that used to generate $10,000 or $12,000 in profit now requires $8,000 or $10,000 in rebates just to move, the math collapses. Stocks that once looked bulletproof start to wobble. When Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis slice 5 figures off sticker prices, Wall Street does not applaud customer value. It sees vanishing profits. Analysts issue downgrades, guidance shrinks, and suddenly those glossy investor decks look like relics from a different era. For everyday buyers who watched corporate leaders squeeze us for every dime, there is a bitter satisfaction in knowing the pain has finally reached the boardroom. The same executives who told us demand is endless must now face conference calls full of angry investors demanding answers. The armor is cracked, and the stock tickers prove it. What once looked like an endless climb is now showing sharp dips, and Wall Street is sweating over the very trucks they once worshipped. The funny part? These investors who never cared when families were saddled with $800 truck payments are suddenly panicking when their own stock portfolios dip a few points. They ignored years of consumer pain. But the moment their quarterly returns slip, they start calling it a crisis. But while investors count their losses, the politicians who claim to stand for us are busy playing their own double game. Politics plays both sides. Every politician loves to wrap themselves in the flag of the auto worker. They tour factories, shake hands on assembly lines, and vow to defend American jobs. At the same time, those same leaders pass tariffs and trade rules that raise the cost of building trucks. They promise protection, but in practice, it leaves buyers footing the bill. Steel, aluminum, and semiconductors get more expensive under tariff regimes, and while dealers slash prices on the front end to move vehicles, the hidden costs creep in through higher production expenses. This contradiction creates chaos. On the evening news, you hear promises of affordable cars and trucks. On the showroom floor, you see inflated base prices disguised by discounts. Meanwhile, workers wonder whether the next round of tariffs will safeguard their jobs or strangle their employers. Politicians get to claim victory either way. If sales rise, they brag about consumer power. If prices rise, they blame foreign rivals. In every scenario, it is the ordinary buyer caught in the squeeze. The anger is real. We are not protected pawns on some patriotic chessboard. We are the ones paying higher costs while leaders cash in political points. The politicians love to stand in front of trucks at campaign stops, acting like defenders of the working class. But behind closed doors, they sign trade deals and push tariffs that make the very same trucks more expensive. Their speeches sell hope, while their policies quietly sell us out. And when politicians dodge accountability, the next group to feel the pressure is not executives or lawmakers, but the people building the trucks themselves. Workers get squeezed. Behind every truck rolling off the line is a worker who depends on steady shifts, and predictable overtime. But when profit margins collapse, management does not cut bonuses at the top. It cuts hours on the floor. That is the cruel rhythm of the industry. The union fights for protection, but every downturn brings familiar headlines: shift reductions, temporary layoffs, overtime slashed. Workers who once believed their jobs were safe because trucks always sell now find themselves staring at uncertainty. It is easy for executives to say labor costs must be trimmed, but those numbers are lives. A canceled shift is a family budget suddenly missing rent or tuition money. A delayed overtime block is groceries unpaid. Yet workers are not the villains here. They are caught in the same squeeze as buyers. Just as families refuse to keep paying inflated truck prices, families building those trucks are about to bear the brunt of shrinking profits. Solidarity matters here. Buyers and workers alike know who created this mess. Automakers that inflated prices, politicians who fumbled policy, and investors who looked the other way. The fallout should not land on the assembly line, but history says it will. And here's the bitter truth no one wants to say. When those plant doors close early or hours get cut, it is not just auto workers who feel it. Local diners, shops, gas stations, and whole communities get pulled down with them. Every layoff ripples outward, hurting towns that depend on that paycheck circulation. Yet even as workers brace for cuts, ordinary buyers now hold a kind of leverage the industry cannot ignore. And the question is how we use it, how we win the crash. The crash is not just chaos. It is a rare moment of power for everyday people. For years, we were told to be grateful if a dealer shaved $500 off a truck. Now, $13,000 markdowns are real, and that leverage belongs to us. The playbook is simple but powerful. Walk into a dealership knowing incentives stack: factory rebates, dealer discounts, loyalty bonuses. Watch VIN numbers online, because the longer a truck sits, the deeper the cuts go. Compare new against used, because in many cases, the discounted new truck is cheaper than a late model trade. Do not be afraid to negotiate hard. The desperation is on their side now. This is how we turn their miscalculation into our win, by holding the line, by refusing to be fleeced. Buyers forced automakers to blink. Now the job is to stay disciplined. Do not rush into bad financing because of flashy ads. Do not settle for token discounts on bloated trims. Take advantage of the market reset with clear eyes and firm ground. For once, the power has shifted. The industry is stumbling, the investors are worried, and the dealers are sweating. We are the ones holding the cards. Because in the end, this crash is not just about trucks. It is about who finally gets to decide what is fair in America's most iconic market. The crash isn't coming. It's already here. Trucks are dropping by thousands. Dealers are panicking. And for once, the leverage is in your hands. Use it wisely. Compare, negotiate, and never settle for sticker shock again. If you found value here, share this video so others don't get blindsided. And make sure you subscribe, because the next wave of changes is already unfolding. And missing it could cost you more than just money. It could cost you opportunity.